Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon if you're, depending on your time zone. I'm Steve Gordon. I'm the chair of the SIGHPC Education Program. And before I introduce today's speaker, I just want to give a couple reminders about the chapter. So bear with me while I share my screen. If some of you are watching or not members of the chapter, I want to urge you to join. The membership is inexpensive, $10 for regular members, $5 for students, and you can find the way to join at sighpceducation.acm.org, and there's a link to the membership site on the membership tab. So I hope some of you that are not members will choose to join because that helps us reach a broader audience and get more people involved. I want to also point out some things I've sent out in email messages. There is a chapter blog and forum. That's at a slightly different place, sighpceducation.hosting.acm.org/WP. And that's to allow for some asynchronous discussion of education and training issues. Also, we've added a list of education and training materials on our main site under resources. And we're also looking for contributions to that list of resources on education and training materials that others in the community can use. So I urge you to look at those two things. Finally, I want to note that we're going to have some upcoming elections this spring. We'll be accepting nominations and self-nominations of officers. There's a chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and 2 at-large members. I will be sending out a notice for nominations next month. We'll hold an election in April for the new officers to take charge in May. The 3 major office holders, chair, vice chair, and secretary, treasurer, must be ACM members and chapter members. The at-large members only need to be chapter members. With that, let me go back and now let me introduce our speaker for today, Jeff Sale from the San Diego Supercomputer Center, and he'll be talking about MOOCs and SPOCs for big data. And so, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point.
Okay, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're connecting from. Give me a moment here while I share my screen with you. And then, so hopefully you can see the introductory slide for my presentation. I have to be honest, I have never given this presentation before, so forgive me for any lack of flow. And of course, as you might expect, I've been working on it up to the last minute. So I wanted to at least give you a little bit of background as to who I am and why I'm even giving this presentation. I'd like to go through the entire slide set very quickly so I can do some actual demonstrations of some of the things that we're doing, and I'll get to the overall outline of this presentation in just a moment. So I got my undergrad degree in physics from San Diego State University. I did some graduate work in neurophysiology, studying the biophysical basis of Parkinson's disease. And I'm proud to say that at the ripe old age of 58, I just got my master's in learning design and technology, which was formerly the education technology program at San Diego State. And I'm also a visual analytics consultant on the side, and I run my own business, which really is very minimal effort, in addition to my full-time job at the San Diego Supercomputer Center. In that regard, how I ended up at the Supercomputer Center began long ago, about 16 years ago, when I joined the NPACI Ed Center at San Diego State University under the direction of Chris Stewart. Some of you may actually even remember Chris. She's retired now. I continued with TeraGrid at the Supercomputer Center in 2005, and Exceed came along. I moved on to other projects, but I'm eager to rejoin the Exceed community with Exceed 2 in June of this year. Excuse me. And part of my time is devoted to a project called CSK, which is an NSF-funded project that I might make reference to on occasion throughout this webinar. So briefly, here's an outline of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about MOOCs in general, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There are a variety of GUIs, and the transcription issue, in my opinion, is a very important one. So I'll address that as I go along. Our specific, or maybe the main reason I'm giving this webinar is the San Diego Supercomputer Center has been delivering a Coursera specialization on big data for the past 5 to 6 months. And I've been playing a central role in that by doing all of the video recording and production. And so over the past 4 months, we've created over 140 video lectures in addition to other content for the 5 Coursera courses we're developing. Then we'll talk briefly about SPOCs, which is really where my own personal heart is at. And a vision of the future, in particular, how we might be able to add a little additional personalization to online learning. And then I'll take maybe a step towards a vision of the future and show you some of the visualization work I've done with a couple of Moodle sites that I have been administrator and instructor on for the past several years. So first of all, the good. MOOCs are available anywhere, anytime for the most part. That comes with a qualifier as long as you have an internet connection and sufficient system requirements. It is extremely participatory with thousands and ultimately millions of students. That's perhaps the most exciting thing, but it gets dinged for that also, and I'll talk about that briefly. It's usually low to no cost. That's the term open. In fact, I don't think I actually have explicitly stated what MOOC stands for. It stands for Massive Open Online Course. And then usually it comes with a certificate of completion, either an individual course or an entire specialization. And I'll talk more about what a specialization is with Coursera in particular. It's not clear yet what the value of these certificates are, but it does appear that they're gaining in value. That's only time will tell at this point. Typically, they are a traditional course format, although shorter than a traditional semester. They're 4 to 8 weeks usually, 3 to 4 hours a week time put in for each student. And one of the other advantages is that it allows students to connect with other people who share the same time zones and languages and other things they may have in common. And that's typically done through the discussion forums. And ultimately, assessments really set MOOCs apart. You really need assessments in order to provide certificates that mean anything. Now, the bad is typically MOOCs are impersonal, and at this point, I think that's the biggest point of contention. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. That really depends to a significant extent on the degree to which the instructor or the instructors are willing to engage online with the students. But you'll never actually get the personal touch. An instructor can't actually reach out and pat you on the back and say, way to go. And that really is important if you're a teacher who cares deeply about connecting with your students. And frequently you'll find as an instructor that there are simply too many students to even attempt a face-to-face kind of engagement or simulation. Now, once again, I think this is an important point of contention, and we'll talk more about that in the context of bringing big data and artificial intelligence to the MOOC environment. It's criticized for having as high as a 95% dropout rate, but the CEO of edX, which is one of the largest MOOCs, has made a very good point in I think either a TED movie or just in an interview about how, for example, the competition in getting admission to a university such as MIT is almost as it's comparable in the sense that for some impacted programs, there's a 5% acceptance rate, which is roughly equivalent to a 95% dropout rate in the bigger picture of things. I think that's an important point to consider. I'm not sure if it really applies, simply because it's very low stakes to enroll in a Coursera course, an online MOOC, because they're free and it really just takes creating an account. Applying for admissions to a university is extremely high stakes that can be very expensive. So now the ugly. Often as I've explored MOOCs, I've noticed that the quality really is just not adequately vetted. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but it's at this point very difficult to find quality content on free open online courses. I found in more than one instance the interfaces can be very clunky. And I can demonstrate an example of that with Coursera in just a few minutes. And the instructors, and I'll have to say that our instructors are examples of this. They just don't have the experience working in the Coursera paradigm. And I'll talk more about what that paradigm is in just a minute. Now, there are a variety of graphical user interfaces and transcription options in some of the leading online MOOCs. I top the list with Lynda, even though it's debatable whether lynda.com is a MOOC, and I'm going to actually show you the Lynda interface. Many of you may not be familiar with Lynda. It recently was bought by, or within the past year, bought by LinkedIn, and is now fully integrated. At least the marketing of lynda.com is integrated into the LinkedIn interface. Coursera, I'll give you a demonstration of. Udemy is a really nice, simple, straightforward interface. If any of you are considering, going rogue on your own, Udemy is a good place to start. They have a minimum of 8 lectures to get started delivering a course, and the cost it can be low to no cost. So once again, Udemy may or may not be considered a real MOOC. Guru Learning, I'm not a big fan of. I have had a hard time finding good content. Khan, many of you are already aware of. Khan is an outstanding site. I'm not going to demonstrate Khan. Many of you are probably already familiar with the interface. So I don't need to say a whole lot more about Khan, but if you want to ask about my thoughts on Khan near the end during question and answer, I'd be happy to talk more about it. I love Khan Academy. So is lynda.com a MOOC? Let's go ahead and take a look at the lynda.com interface. So I'm going to shuffle to my browser and bring up the lynda.com interface. And I'm hoping I'm not moving too quickly and that you're all still getting this. Also, I wasn't clear about the interface resolution, so I want to zoom in a little bit and make sure that the text is big enough. Now, lynda.com is not a free website, but it provides online tutorials for any kind of technical topic you can think of, and their library is huge. They provide very, very outstanding quality video tutorials on all kinds of technical topics, and their cost is $25 a month. I love lynda.com because really the transcript. They have a really nice outline on the left, and you can browse what the content, and in this case we're looking at a course on Hadoop. And I single out Hadoop because the big data course we're teaching in Coursera includes, or the specialization includes, a course on Hadoop. The lynda.com interface typically is very clean, very elegant. They have a nice clean style and look and feel, but their transcript is really what sets them apart. As you're playing the video, you'll see the transcript highlight, and I can click. Let's pause, and I can click on the transcript and jump to a particular location in that video. I can search the transcript. I can get a summary of particular topics, such as yarn, if I want to search on the term yarn. Yarn is an acronym for yet another resource negotiator. And then I can click on the search results and jump to that. So now I'm showing you this because this is a glimpse sort of into the future. Online MOOCs typically don't provide these kinds of high quality interaction right now, and in part because they are somewhat lower budget delivery systems. So is lynda.com a MOOC? Well, it does serve thousands, and ultimately it will be serving millions of students, so that's very much massive. However, it's isolated learning. You're generally learning on your own. You don't really get interaction with other students through discussion forums, but there are opportunities to review courses. There's no course ratings, though. You do get a certificate at the end. Not anyone can create a course. lynda.com finds professional trainers and trains them to deliver their course within their paradigm. And they're trained professionals, and they're very well rehearsed. And there's no assessments. So the certificate from lynda.com, it's not really clear what that means at this point. But I love their advanced GUI. Their control of the transcript is outstanding. It's searchable and very interactive. So the bottom line is it's not really a MOOC because it's not free or open, but it has many, many qualities that I think MOOCs should take into account and work towards. And I'll give you a demonstration of a tool that I've developed personally that tries to simulate in a simpler form the lynda.com interface integrated into the Moodle learning management system. And we'll get to that in just a moment. So about our Coursera experience in particular, Coursera is a for-profit company. So they're all about monetization. And the UCSD professor, Dr. Beth Simon, had connected with them back in the spring of 2015 and was actually hired by them to be their director of instructional technology. And Beth has a number of, she's juggling a number of projects and has just brilliant ideas in all of them. And so it all began not only with Beth at Coursera, but Splunk put out a solicitation to compete for big data specialization. And out of 40 applicants, SDSC won that solicitation. It requires 5 courses. Each course is 4 to 8 weeks, plus a capstone. And capstone typically is not a complete course. The 5 courses include Intro to Big Data, Hadoop, Big Data Analytics, Machine Learning, and Graph Analytics. There's 1 course per month, roughly, is how it's turned out. We're working on course 5 right now. And we're redoing courses 2 through 4 to some extent based on student feedback. Probably the biggest positive that's got everybody at SDSC excited, including, and it may also be why I'm talking to you today, is we're making a lot of money. We're breaking all of Coursera's enrollment records, and we don't know what to do with ourselves. I'm not quite sure how much more to say about that at this point, but it's very exciting what the opportunities are. So now let's talk a little bit about the Coursera course structure. As I mentioned, it's 4 to 8 weeks. Ours are typically 4 to 5 weeks. 3 to 4 lessons per week, and each lesson includes 3 to 6 video lectures. And we try to keep the video lectures between 3 and 15 minutes long. lynda.com typically adheres to that. Anything longer than that can be very draining for today's younger audience. So I mentioned earlier, within 4 months, we created 120 video lectures. I'm proud to say I did that pretty much single-handedly. I don't ever want to go through that again. We've hired a couple of students. I'll talk about them in a moment, and they're playing a huge role in making my life sane again. And assessments are extremely important, although I'll talk a little bit more about the limitations of assessing thousands of students. There are in-video questions, which are very low stakes. They just try to engage the student as they're watching the video. Quizzes are, as you might expect, if you've taught, Coursera has the standard type of quiz question options, multiple choice, fill in the blank, those kinds of things. And then there's 2 types of assignments. You can, in a programming assignment, you can actually use regular expressions to analyze a student's output automatically. If you can come up with a problem that fits well within being analyzed by a regular expression, hopefully some of you know what a regular expression is. I'm not going to go into detail there. But for programming assignments, which is part of what we're doing, it's nice to have that option. But most Coursera courses use peer review, and some students don't really like that. They don't like being graded by other students because sometimes other students don't actually do a very good job if the peer review is not designed very well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the bright spots of Coursera is that we can recruit mentors from the beta testers. And a course begins with a week of beta testing, and I'll talk more about the challenge of meeting that deadline. Briefly, the hardware that we used is listed here. Fairly low-cost video camera, and we were using green screens because of the constraints on the Coursera course requiring a talking head in all of their videos, at least to some extent. And you don't have to use a green screen, but we thought it might add a nice touch. And I'll show you an example of our video output. And we use some pretty basic software, as you might expect. PowerPoint, as much as I hate PowerPoint, it's what our instructors know. And in all honesty, I hate it and I love it because I'm using it right now. Camtasia is a great tool for these kinds of things. I sort of have a love-hate because it tends to crash. Audacity is a wonderful free audio editing tool, and many of you already know Premiere. So we have student assistants. We just hired them within the past month, and they are putting in good time, and they really help a lot. And they're also helping with the Coursera discussion monitoring, which is huge because that probably is the most time-consuming thing. Coursera courses are ongoing. So the challenges that we faced include problems finding a decent recording space. Every university probably has faculty recording spaces for recording online video lectures, but they're very expensive. So we wanted to create our own, but we've ended up using a very small office space until we can convert another space that's better suited. And it's soundproofed, which is huge. Instructors have had no prior experience with the Coursera design format of videos that are so short. They're used to delivering hour-long presentations at conferences, and that's the paradigm that they know. So it was a real challenge getting them to break up their, not only their content, but their mindset. So yeah, the short videos, it requires a talking head, and so they have to learn how to be in front of a camera, which meant ultimately we bought a teleprompter. We couldn't wing it in front of a video camera unless we have hours and hours of training, which we just didn't have. The limited assessment options are really a challenge because it's also a different paradigm than our instructors have worked with. You can't grade open-ended text questions if you have thousands of students. More challenges. The development timeline is far too short. Coursera is all about monetization, and academia is not. And they don't mesh very well. I can't imagine we are the only institution to have gone through the struggles that we've gone through in trying to meet the deadlines. But it is really come at a cost. So yes, they're full-time researchers. We're all full-time. We're trying to fit this in to our extra time until the money starts coming in. Now that the money's come in, it can offset some of the researchers' time if they really want to. But some of our researchers are so overcommitted. They simply, it's just really too much of a challenge, but they're hanging in there. We all admit or agree that we should have done a single course first and not a 5-course specialization. Let that be a lesson. And the instructors really never got proper training because we started in the summer and everybody was doing vacations, and it was very difficult to coordinate a week-long training program, which is what Coursera typically requires. Also, I look at this as a potential opportunity. Media file management, we're working with hundreds of media files now. There's at least 4 media files for each video lecture, and we're going to end up with a couple of hundred videos after this is all done. But there may be some data mining to be done with that information. I'm not sure yet. That's just speculation. We're storing our data on the cloud. So, okay, let's talk about what SPOCs are. This is my humor slide. SPOC is a small, private online course, and it really is very similar to what a learning management system has been all about for many, many years. So it's a new acronym. I'm not sure I'm a fan of the acronym, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily the same thing. Some MOOCs are actually supporting SPOCs now, and I think that's maybe the distinction that's being made, because learning management systems generally are being used to deliver real courses that result in a degree of some sort. So SPOC platforms, currently, I'm going to go ahead and say they're pretty much synonymous with learning management system platforms, but some of you may know Blackboard, but Blackboard has a new free version called Course Sites, which I think is great. I don't like the Blackboard clunky GUI, but it's a really impressive integration of features. Google Classroom is also being very competitive at the K-12 level in particular. Canvas is also competitive at the K-12 level, but now they've recently been chosen by the California Community College system, which I think is huge. They're making their system available for free initially, and ultimately we're going to have to pay. But currently, it's been sort of every system, every college for themselves, and it's been very expensive. And this should help consolidate and reduce costs for colleges in general who buy in. Schoology, I'm a big fan of because it has built-in social networking features, and edX is one of the more academic-minded MOOCs that is now supporting SPOCs. And I'm a big fan of edX. edX is more about the learning and not so much about the money, although they do also charge for their courses. My own personal preference is the Moodle Learning Management System. I think it's just the best all-around platform, but it really depends on your needs. So talking briefly about adaptive e-learning, this is where we might be able to make MOOCs more personalized. Adaptive e-learning tracks the user's current state of learning and redirects them depending on whether they're progressing positively or negatively. And the thing is that it does it automatically. So the hope would be to add a little bit more tender loving care to a MOOC interface and give it a more personal touch. It doesn't exist yet in any MOOC that I've seen. Really, any personal touch is going to have to come from the instructor through the discussions or through the communication. But it's not clear what students really need for positive reinforcement and what motivates them. And I'm optimistic that things like artificial intelligence will be able to help, but it's going to be a long, hard road, and students in some ways will be as much annoyed as assisted by the process. So speaking of big data, our big data course talks about the 6 steps of data science, where you first acquire the data and you explore, pre-process, analyze, report, and act on that data. I bring this up because in reality, in high-performance computing and delivering online instruction, which is what I believe in part this webinar is all about, we're missing opportunities at every one of these steps. We're missing opportunities in creating MOOC interfaces that can generate useful data that we can acquire. Right now, some data that's very useful is being collected, but there are incredible opportunities to collect more meaningful types of data with in-page analytics and dwell times and those kinds of things. My own personal favorite of that 6-step process is the explore process. And so this is pretty much the end of my slide presentation. What I'm going to do now is show you briefly the Coursera interface. And let's shuffle back. I want to make sure we're still okay with Hangouts. Okay, so I did not have my Coursera page open. Okay. So at the moment, I have to be honest, I haven't gotten any feedback from anyone that I'm coming through yet, okay or not okay, so I'm still going
it's okay.
Full speed ahead. Okay, thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. Okay, so here's the Coursera interface. My role, as I mentioned, has been in doing the video recordings and production, but I also had a great opportunity to do some of the actual lectures as an official instructor in the graph analytics for big data. That's this course listed right here. Excuse me. Now, first of all, I want to go in the administrator's interface and give you an idea what we see behind the scenes and what creating a Coursera course is like. So these are all of the courses currently being developed by UCSD. And I'm going to go into the graph analytics for big data course. That's the course, as I mentioned, that I actually have had a chance to help teach with. So it opens with the dashboard. It gives us a listing of how many students have actually enrolled. This course alone has been visited by 13,000. There's 3,000 that are engaged and 3,000 that have actually paid. I'll leave it to you to look up what the courses are costing typically, and that'll give you an idea what the kind of money is that we're bringing in. And I suppose it's probably okay for me to break down how that money's being distributed, but I honestly don't know exactly those details. So I'll wait till the Q&A before we get into that. We're very excited to see that we've got over 100 course completers already. This is the last course in the specialization. And we usually need at least 100 students to justify a capstone cohort. The capstones are, each course is delivered once every 2 weeks, or a new cohort begins once every 2 weeks. I apologize, I don't think I mentioned that in my slides. So we have hundreds of new students every 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks we get graduates, so to speak. And we have 127 who are ready to do a capstone, and this is very recent. The Graph Analytics course just went live a few weeks ago, so that's going to be in the thousands at some point. Now, capstones are only delivered 4 times a year, so I think we're going to have a real challenge grading our capstones. Coursera has rarely had this many students going into capstones, but we'll see how that goes. So we're real excited to see that. As we click each one of these interface features, we can see more specific details. We can see details as to the continents they come from. We can get an idea of their gender and age distributions. This is a highly technical course, but we're very proud to see that there's a significant percentage of women, 15%. And we get an idea of the student's education status, how many PhDs there are, how many are self-employed, and so on. So this is a really great way to get an idea of the state of this particular course. Let's look at the content itself. As I mentioned, some of the MOOC interfaces are kind of clunky. And this part of the interface is actually a way for us to go through and look at the thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm not sure if you saw the rating. The rating of this course right now is 3.8. We'd like it to be higher, but the likes versus dislikes are 95% likes. So it's sometimes hard to interpret what the ratings mean compared to the likes and the dislikes. Likes and dislikes address individual instructional items, such as a video lecture, whereas the overall rating, whereas the rating is of the course overall. So we'd like to be a little bit higher, but we're real happy about the likes versus dislikes. So yeah, there's our rating right there. There are stories that students share. One of the ones I like to show is, this was the best course so far from the big data specialization. We're thrilled. This is the first course that we did, we felt correctly. We used a teleprompter. We had the scripts written beforehand. The instructors were better trained in front of the video, and they were better prepared with their content beforehand. The coherence from course to course still needs work, which is why we're going to redo the other courses. We'll know more about the retention tomorrow. Unfortunately, the course is so new, we just don't know what the retention is, but it looks pretty good. So let's go into the course editing interface. This is what I was referring to as clunky. As we click a lecture, if we want to go in and edit a lecture, Coursera has a feature where it seems to want to delete spaces. If I'm typing and I introduce a space but want to type another word, if I dwell too long on that, it's going to go ahead and delete that space and even delete some of the text. So it's a buggy interface. It's a custom interface. They have some nice features, such as in-video questions. They provide the option to add resources, such as links to supplementary material. And all of these are placed in specific locations in the video. And then there's additional features if you want to add more advanced capabilities, such as a quiz specific to this item. Coursera has a list of things to add, a list of learning objects, such as a lecture, which is what we were just looking at. Oh, and I didn't play you the lecture, so I'll go ahead and play another lecture. You can do a practice quiz, which is low stakes, and a reading, a programming assignment, discussion prompt, or peer review. And the LTI item is something we haven't used yet. Let's look at one of the videos. This is the end result of the production, and I'll go full screen here.
As we saw in these programs, what graphs are used for are kind of different, but they all show different viewpoints from which you can use graph for this analysis. Since this course focuses on graph analytics, I would like you to recap what the term means. Analytics is the ability.
Okay, so that gives you a sense of the Coursera interface. I've shown you a little bit about the lynda.com interface. Oh, what I haven't shown you is view as learner. Okay, so now as a Coursera instructor, I can click a button and jump right into the course itself and look at it as though I were a student. So here's the course. If you want to enroll in this course, you can go ahead and check it out. Every course is free. If you want the certificate, you'll have to pay. There's a brief introductory screen. The course content is, as you might expect, it's in a weekly format. And it begins in a sequence. So we start with a welcome lecture, video lecture. But I'm going to scroll down and look at something a little bit more specific. Let's look at Amarnath's video on why graphs. You'll have an outline of this particular lesson. And let's pause this. So you'll have an outline of the different learning items within this particular lesson. And if we scroll down here, there's a discussion that can be specific to this video. You can download the video, you can download subtitles, and you can download the transcript. The videos are captioned. Excuse me. I'm not sure if you noticed that. But yes, all online content, and even academic institutions such as UCSD should be putting all of their online content, including captions, just to adhere to accessibility standards. So the Coursera video delivery interface from a student's perspective is fairly nice. It's not nearly as advanced as the lynda.com interface, and they're not getting any kind of data with respect to what the student is doing in the video, whether they're jumping around, whether I'll give you a quick demonstration of a Moodle-based interface that actually does provide that kind of an interface. So this is a Moodle site that we're looking at now that we've developed for our CS Cave project, which is an NSF-funded program to train teachers within 3 school districts in San Diego County on the new APCS principles curriculum that is being promoted by the College Board. Here you'll see the transcript on the left, and if we play the video, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume down here, you'll see the content highlighted in the transcript as the instructor's talking. And this is Art Lopez. He's a high school teacher in a school district down in Chula Vista, Sweetwater High School District. And he's having his classroom recorded. And as I scroll through the video, you'll see the transcript update. I can search the transcript. So if I want to go ahead and search, we're teaching a curriculum on the Alice programming language, based around the Alice programming language developed by Beth Simon. And if I click submit, I get a couple of search results. I can jump to that point in the video. If we look at this highlighted text in the transcript, we'll see that the term Alice actually is returned correctly. And then we can play the video at that point. We also have a timeline that details the flow of the actual hour and a half. This is actually the first 33 minutes of an hour and a half class that we recorded a couple of weeks ago. Now, the cool thing about this is that we're gathering data on user activity. So I just clicked a link that is opening a table that shows all of the activity for this particular video tutorial, and all the activity really is just me, but it shows the search terms, it shows when I browsed the search results, and this is all kinds of useful data that could be used in guiding the student's learning experience. Okay, so before I stop, I've got maybe 5 minutes to go here. I want to play a short video of visualizing data like this. San Diego Supercomputer Center has hosted a Moodle site for teachers for the past several years, and it uses a MySQL database, and I've extracted this database content and visualized it with a new tool. I'm not sure if any of you have imagined what an entire Moodle site, all the courses, all student activity might actually look like. Actually, I'm sorry, this is not the one that I wanted to play for you, so let me browse here. This is the one that I wanted to play. Okay, so this is a cross-platform visualization tool that we affectionately call ANTS. There's a commercial version developed by a company called Synglyphics, which I mentioned earlier. And I'm not sure if you can make this out. I know Google Hangouts may or may not be able to broadcast this very well. But each object that we're looking at represents a monthly activity summary of every student in our Teacher Tech, our Supercomputer Center's Teacher Tech Moodle. There are over 7,000 students. There were over 300 courses, and if I adjust my view here, we can look at all of the individual monthly summary events for the entire site. The horizontal shaped objects, horizontally they represent individual students, vertically they represent individual months of the school year. So in this case, you'll see, I won't move my cursor too much, keep the controller out of the way. That's from the bottom to the top, about 10 months, or I'm sorry, about 8 months of the school year, starting with September at the bottom and ending at about April. May, the school years typically last through May, but it looks like the course Moodle was not used during that final month of the school year. Now here are a couple of interesting sort of pillars of activity, and these actually represent teachers from the Sweetwater School District who are going through ongoing training in an asynchronous way. Now each one of these objects can be have information associated with them, and with the press of a key on the keyboard, I can open up their account in Moodle. So I've got an actual interface with this visualization tool to my Moodle site. So I'm using this as a navigation interface to my Moodle server. Now I'm going to jump ahead here. And here's an example now of adding statistical data to the individual activity events. The white cube-shaped objects represent the actual frequency of activity, such as when a student views something in their course, or when they actually post to a discussion. So I can actually query those objects and visualize those kinds of data. So we can look at the date. This is me in particular, and this is back in 2006, August 1st. I think this is when I first logged into the site and created a few course lesson items. So this is the entire Moodle site, but it's summarized at a monthly level, so we aren't really seeing individual student activity. We have another visualization, and I'm going to close after we take a look at this. Let's close that. Well, I'm not sure. Oh, I'm full screen, I'm sorry. Okay, I think I'm going to have to open my downloads. Here it is. Okay, so here we're looking at actual individual student activity. If I zoom to the end of this video, okay, I'm not sure why. There we go. This is an actual individual course over the course of a semester. And so I'm sort of fast forwarding the video here because I'm running out of time. From left to right are individual students of the course. They are color-coded based on the grade that they got in their course. And vertically is the timeline of the course. This particular course was a combination of face-to-face and online. And so there's these different levels, these different plateau appearing structures that represent in-class activity of the student. And if we zoom in to an actual individual student sequence of objects, we can get a sense of a student actually posting to a discussion forum or taking a quiz, and we can query further and see what the grade of those quizzes are. I'm rushing a bit, there's a closer view, but this gives you a better idea of really the options that a teacher has of using this interface to navigate actual individual learning events of each student for each course in the MOOC. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop here and maybe hand it over to Steve.
Okay, now what I'd like to encourage those that are in the audience, we have a couple of questions already posted, but if you use the Q&A button in the viewer, you can pose any other questions. So let me start with the first question is from Nitin Suhija. He says, in exploration, are you developing data models, and what is the content covered in this module? I think he was asking that earlier in one of your examples.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question. Now, I referred to exploration in the 6 steps of data science. So I want to make sure that's what I think that's Ed that's asking that question. Oh no, sorry, it's
Neaton.
Neaton. So I can't say no that we are developing data models at this point. No, I'm sort of speculating the possibilities. Coursera, whether Coursera actually has a data model around the data that they're gathering, I couldn't say yet. I am able to download Coursera data and look at it. I've been having a hard time finding time to actually create some nice visualizations like the ones I just showed you, but I hope to get time to do that soon.
Jeff, can you turn off screen sharing? Okay.
Oh yeah, sure.
Second question is from Julia, asked, have you looked at the Open edX platform? It has the transcript capability that you demonstrated in the Lynda platform, and it also has assessments, discussion boards, etc.
Honestly, I have to be honest, it's been a while since I went into edX. I should have done that before I did this presentation, because like I say, I'm a big fan of edX's vision and direction and priorities. So I'm glad to hear that. That's outstanding. Thank you for sharing that.
Can you tell, I have a question, then there's another one posted, but the transcripts are inserted because you script them, or are they captured in some way? How do you capture the transcripts for these tools?
Well, okay, yeah. Coursera does their own transcription. We have the script we could give them, but they say that that's just not feasible for their workflow. For the little tutorial tool I demonstrated that I've integrated into Moodle, I did the transcribing. Oh no, I take that back. I have a little transcription tool I can use myself, but this was an hour and a half and we needed it the next day, so we used a service that UCSD subscribes with called SpeechPad. But synchronizing the transcript with the video to make it searchable is not something I can get from SpeechPad. SpeechPad would either give me the transcript or they'd give me the captions, but they would choose their own time sequence for the captions, and I need more flexibility. So I've got my own scripts that I've written that will parse the transcript into captions, basically, and then make it searchable with the PHP.
Okay. Ed asked, can you elaborate on the advantages of a SPOC versus a MOOC?
Well, at the moment, it depends on the SPOC, honestly. And I have not had the opportunity to experience an edX SPOC. I have been through a couple of their courses a few months back, but if we're talking about a smaller version of a Coursera type course, I would say it really is just a lot easier for the instructor to engage with the students, and even consider maybe doing some synchronous interaction with either a chat or Google Hangout like we're doing here. That's the biggest difference. It would also impact your ability to create more personalized assessments. But it really depends on the numbers. I wanted to mention also, I teach with Moodle. I teach at a local community college, and recently our college, our district, mandated an increase in class size from 35 to 50. 50 students starts to get into the realm of overwhelming for a teacher who really wants to teach and give the student a grade that's working towards a degree. So we're quite upset about the 50, the number 50, and the attrition rate as a result is higher percentage-wise. So I'm kind of disappointed about that, but I would call that a SPOC, and I would say that my ability to interact very intimately with my students is really one thing that sets me apart, actually, because I'm teaching some things that I may not necessarily be as much of an expert on. For example, I just taught HTML5 and CSS3 last semester, and you know, near the end, I was kind of teaching myself as learning as I was teaching. So. But I do really well in discussions, and I facilitate weekly virtual office hours and those kinds of things. And a SPOC, I think, is designed to facilitate that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, I want to add to that. We've run several SPOCs as part of both the Exceed education program and the Blue Waters outreach program. And the way that works is the lead instructor puts together the videos, quizzes, and assignments, but we have collaborating faculty from around the nation then that have small classes of their own, and they can meet with their classes locally. So it's a sort of a blended learning platform, and we found that was much more effective because on technical topics, the students could then get local help very easily and have a bit of face-to-face embedded with the online. So.
Now I want to reinforce the huge thing about MOOCs, and my wife and I both teach at the community college level, and MOOCs are threatening our livelihood to some extent because we teach programming, and it's so easy to teach yourself programming. But Anant Agarwal, the first course they taught reached 100,000 students, and even though only 1,500 ultimately passed the course, that is more students than he'd be able to reach in 40 years of teaching. So honestly, and this was actually a hard course. This was an MIT engineering course of some sort. And so he was really proud of that. And honestly, I can't argue with that. There's no way I can reach 1,500 students any other way. And if you have to sacrifice some of the personalization, you're still graduating 1,500 students. It's jaw-dropping.
Yeah. I have another question from Neaton. He says, the visuals are very informative for reporting and examining the impact of a class. Have you explored other visual tools which are open source?
Well, yes, there's a number of really good ones. Some of the open source ones like D3 are maybe a little bit difficult to ramp up on. But yeah, I'm a big fan of 2D and 3D, and Moodle even has some built-in visualization capabilities. No, I'd love to actually give a visualization workshop because there's some real exciting 2D visualization tools, graph networking tools like Gephi, and the lessons I taught in the graph analytics course was of Neo4j, which is a great browser-based graph database.
All right, we'll just wait another minute or so to see if there are any other questions. We very much appreciate your talk. It was a very very informative overview of MOOCs and some of the tools that are out there. Seeing no other questions, I want to thank you again for doing the webinar. And just for those that are watching, I'll be editing out our initial wait time at the beginning and posting the final video to YouTube sometime over the next few days. So if you want to go back and review anything that was presented here, that will be online within a couple of days. So thank you again, Jeff, and thank you for the audience, and appreciate this, and look forward to the next webinar. We'll try to get together perhaps next month.
Thanks, Steve. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.